Hey, how you doing, guys? I've kind of got an interesting video, and I'm a content creator. I also like looking at other people's videos, and normally I don't like doing response videos. Occasionally I do. I think I've maybe made two response videos in like over 750 videos I've got on YouTube right now, because they tend to be kind of negative, but you know. But this has to do, I came across this video that said with the Apple releasing the new iMac Pro, he basically said the iMac Pro sucks. That was the name of the video. And then he actually made a response video to that, his final thoughts on the iMac Pro. Now this comes from a content creator on YouTube called Eli the Computer Guy. I've seen some of his earlier videos. I haven't seen his new long format, which is what he calls it. And so, normally I don't respond to these videos that much, but curiosity got to the best of me, and I'm like, well, okay, let's see the reasons why, it sucks so bad for you. So, it was I can't remember, maybe a 15, 20-minute video. After the first 10 minutes of semantics, I finally figured out the reason why he said it sucks. It basically comes down to three reasons. On the most part, I might have missed one or two. It's for one, too expensive for the $5,000 starting price. That's what he says. Number two, it's not upgradable. And then three, you can't buy a monitor separately. And he did make a response, another video after that, trying to explain more into, his that video. I think his final thoughts on the iMac Pro. So I'm actually going to break all three down and talk about some of the things that he did and the reasons why. Some of it doesn't really make sense to me here. Anytime you say something's too expensive, you really got to compare it to something else, because everybody's needs different. So yeah, it's too expensive in relation to what? I mean, to the average computer user. I mean, the iMac Pro is designed for Pro. It's using a 5K display and using workstation server parts. Xeon processors, which are more expensive. Large amounts of ECC RAM, which is more expensive than regular RAM. And you have to use a Xeon if you want to use high amounts of RAM, because I think the Intel i7s max out at a certain amount of RAM. I can't remember what it is. And it uses workstation graphic cards. In this case, I think it's Vega Pro or something like that from AMD. Not yet even on the out on the market yet, so it's actually probably going to be close to a bleeding edge workstation graphic card. But with all that aside, I mean, for Eli, it doesn't make sense of having such a machine in the first place, because he's simply not in that market. And he even goes on to say that he doesn't like editing video. That's why he uses the long form, where he doesn't have to edit anything. And this is myself. The circles I run in and on the internet and off the internet is there's actually a market for this machine, simply because a lot of the places I go to, either they say they bought an maxed out iMac rather than a Mac Pro, or there is even see a lot of questions. I mean, a lot of questions on, should I buy a maxed out iMac or should I get a Mac Pro? Those kind of questions. And so that tells me right away that there's a market for this type of machine. And I think he even goes on, and it says, Eli says you can't price people out of a market. And like I said, this market isn't for the type of stuff that Eli does. Now, some people do, which is funny, because he's talking about, this came out in the Worldwide Developers Conference 2017, And they even announced a new lower price entry iMac for $1,099, which is I can't remember what it was before. I think it was $1,200 or $1,299 or something like that. So quite a price drop for an entry level. So that makes no sense to me because you have choices. Every market has usually different price points depending on the target audience they're trying to sell to. So really to say, too expensive, it all depends. Another point he comes up, number 2, is you can't upgrade it. Now the reason why he's coming out with this is he's saying that with the current technology, they're coming out with 8K, HDR, virtual reality, and you can't upgrade these Macs to take advantage of this. And well, the same thing could be said when the iMac first came out. Well, maybe not first came out because the original CRT iMac was upgradable. You actually had a tray you could pull out, replace the hard drive, I believe, graphic card, memory. But then when they came out with the first kind of a unibody type, I think it might have still been plastic, I can't remember, before the all aluminum iMacs. Even back then, technology was even faster than it is today, because to me, the technology on a lot of stuff has slowed down because Intel, they slowed their production down because they kept on hitting either a thermal wall with faster processors, so they went to multiple cores. Then they went, I forgot some of the other walls they hit. So that slowed down. To give you an example. So to me, just because you make an all-in-one Mac, technology is never going to stop. It's going to continue to get better. Of course, like I said, when the iMac came out, I mean, things were still improving. It doesn't mean you say, well, I can't upgrade it. So to take, new technology, I mean, back then you couldn't either. And it was advancing to me personally, I think, in my opinion, it was advancing at a faster rate back then than it is now. It slowed down somewhat, probably because a lot of people are going to mobile rather than desktops. So development on the desktops has slowed down quite a bit, with the exception of course, the pro users, the gamers, and things like that. I'm not saying dramatically, but really to say all that is quite kind of hyped up a little bit. And he kind of gives a bad example, and for an example, he uses Linus Tech Tips, which is a well-known tech user on YouTube, and by saying he actually is using, he went to 8K red cameras, and so he's saying, well, you can't upgrade these iMacs to be able to use the newest cameras and all that. Well, not necessarily, because you have something called proxy media, and in fact, most major video editors use proxy media, which includes Final Cut Pro, 10, Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, and I'm not sure about Avid and some of the other ones. And basically what proxy media does is you can take those 8K files, it'll actually make a duplicate set at a much lower resolution. 4K, it could be 1070, 1080p, or whatever you set it for. And so you're actually going to be editing those proxy media files. And you can actually edit 8K video on a 3-year-old laptop using proxy media. So to say that you have to have the most extreme computer out there to edit 8K, not really. Now keep in mind though, is once you completely edit it and you go to final render, yes, it will slow down substantially. So in that case, yes. but for the actual editing, not necessarily so. That's why you have proxy media you can do, and which really makes and this goes a line where he says, it's too expensive as well, because he's talking about Linus Tech Tips using two 8K cameras, and we're talking in the let me see, five figure range, $50,000 or more. Red cameras are expensive, and the accessories, batteries, monitors, and somehow yet a 5,000 iMac Pro is too expensive, and that's really a bad example to use in this case. And plus other things, he has he uses an external render server, so he's going to take these files and send it to a render server anyway. So he's exception to the rule in many cases, and like I said, a lot of the stuff he said didn't make sense. And then he goes into how eco-friendly Apple is, and by having a 5K monitor that's going to, not make it eco-friendly. I'm guessing what he's saying is there's more stuff, so it's going to be less eco-friendly because to be able to get rid of it and process it. And what Apple says when they mean by eco-friendly is once that computer, it goes on the secondary, let's say you sell it, it goes on the secondary or even third market, it's reused until, let's say, it finally doesn't work anymore, it's so old. And that what Apple is talking is about how easy it is to recycle, how recycle friendly it is into aluminum. The closure, it's aluminum. They don't use arsenic, glass is recyclable, and so on. Not necessarily he's going on to this, it's just more to recycle, and so it's not eco-friendly. It makes no sense. And this kind of goes into his third thing, is you can't buy the monitor separately. Of course, not too long ago, they said they're going to stop making monitors and recommended using, other monitors, 4K, 5K, which they actually have on their website you can buy. But of course, they restructured their whole thing for the pro market, so they're going to come back with their own displays. And of course, the new redesigned Mac Pro coming out in the next year or two. And so, to me, these reasons aren't necessarily well thought out. And just because it's too expensive, you can't upgrade and so on, doesn't mean it can't be used by someone else who is in this type of market that uses a 5K display with workstation server parts inside. There is a market for it, like I said, because I see it all the time. People asking, they're either stating that they bought maxed out iMacs rather than a workstation Mac Pro or other, perhaps even a PC Windows workstation. And or questions coming up, should I buy a maxed out iMac, or should I, buy a Mac Pro desktop? And in some cases, the maxed out iMac works better for them. But I could go on and on and on and on. But give me your thoughts. I'm going to try to post the two videos. So if you want to take a look at that first real quick, and then come back and make a response on that, and give your thoughts on some of the my things, kind of defending why some of his choices he came up with. The iMac Pro sucks. All right. Thanks again, and see you later.